Two college radio DJs during the 90s, hosts Keith and Steve helped expose bands like Nirvana, Pavement, and PJ Harvey. They went to shows, interviewed musicians, and reviewed albums for various designs and papers. They worked security at concerts and once even did load-in for Fish. Now, they're dads. Whether you want to explore lesser-known music or take a trip down memory lane, tune into the new Dad Rock. Join hosts Keith and Steve as they navigate the ages together, sharing their love of music across various eras and genres. Always well-intentioned, often well-informed, seldom boring, the new Dad Rock will expand your mind.
Shamil, Shamazel, Incorporated.
We're gonna do it! Yeah! Rock enthusiasts, welcome back to the new Dad Rock. I'm your host, Steve. Who is you?
I'm Keith.
Right, and today we are rewinding the clock back to 1974, a year that gave birth to some incredible music albums and bands and songs. So kick back, sit back, relax, and let's dig into some of the sonic treasures of 1974.
Dude, before we get there, though, in 1974, Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley and his Comets returned to the Billboard Top 40 20 years after it was recorded.
Because I have,
and do you know why?
Because of Happy Days.
Well, we opened, I don't know if we're going to cut it, but with the Laverne and Shirley riff from, which was a companion show to Happy Days.
It was a spinoff, wasn't it?
Yeah, that might have been true. But in my hand right now, I'm holding a picture of me, my friend Brian, and the drummer from his Comets, I guess Bill Haley and his Comets, the drummer who was the recording drummer for that song, Rock Around the Clock. I ran into him in Death Valley in 1996 when Brian and I were on our post-college road trip around the western United States, and he was a waiter there.
But how did you know it was him? Like, that's not a recognizable guy. I don't know the drummer of most of the bands I listen to.
No. You're in Death Valley at the one hotel.
So word gets out.
You're at this one hotel. Well, he's the waiter. You're hanging drinking because you're staying there that night. And the bartender, some psychic lady with tarot cards who lived in a trailer out back, she was telling us that he was this famous rocker because we were probably talking about music or something. And on the wall, in the picture I'm holding, you see a picture of him from a newspaper as well as a picture of the gold record.
Got it. So
yeah.
This sounds like actually a good beginning of a TV show or series.
You mean pictures from...
No, just staying in that remote location, with...
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the new Dad Rock will venture off into television.
You know what else happened in 1974 that's not actually the music of 1974?
You learned how to poop in a diaper?
Dude, I probably learned the 6 months earlier. But maybe. No, the Roland RE201 and the 101 Space Echo tape-based audio delay effects units were introduced. This is huge.
So what does that mean in layman's terms?
Well, okay. They were like more reliable echo effects that you could travel with because usually they were big and they'd break all the time. And actually, I think these still break, but especially now because they're 49 years old. But you could travel with them. So what's interesting is the musicians or the genres that they were used in were like reggae, dub, trip hop, post punk, and experimental rock. But back then, it was also used in rockabilly. Like Brian Setzer used it to recreate the slapback for their music. And
was Brian Setzer
Bob Marley
around in 74?
No, but I'm saying these are the people who used it. I'm saying this is when the
yeah.
effect was taken out. Yeah, my bad.
He wasn't that much later, though.
Nah, but he's stuck around a long, long time. Radiohead is probably also pretty famous for using it, or Portishead.
Okay, yeah. So the trip hop of the late 90s, second half of the 90s.
Totally. Yeah, I'm just excited to actually incorporate some of the guitar gear into our podcast. I don't know why I waited so long, but probably because they didn't electrify it till the 50s.
And we've not been doing those decades in the first, like we weren't doing the 50s on the 50 episodes.
Because we weren't around back then, so
yeah.
it wasn't the same. Now we have real life experience.
Yeah, I mean, in
with this year.
'74, I was definitely rocking out to AM radio that my parents had on. That's for sure.
Before we get to 74, what's up with the Lizard?
Okay, so this week's update with King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard is that some Instagram photos have been posted to look like they are seemingly recording a new album. That is in addition to unconfirmed at the time of the recording, their 25th album or second album of 2023 is rumored to be coming out on October 27th. The rumored title is The Silver Chord, and likely there will be 9 songs, including one entitled Space Junk.
That's very specific. What are your sources?
We have secret sources here at the New Dad Rock, and let's just say that these are credible. It has to do with registering song titles with ACCAP or ASCAP, the music publishing company. And you know, that's all I can say at this point.
So, formerly secret TNDR sources.
Well,
all right. Thanks, ASCAP. All right. Now on to some news. You know who's performing the 2024 Super Bowl halftime show, Steve?
I have no idea.
I think this was announced yesterday. Usher.
Usher. Okay.
Is it Usher?
No, it's Usher.
It's Usher.
Usher.
It's Usher.
So you may think that Usher has nothing to do with the New Dad Rock, but dear listeners, let me tell you the truth of why Usher is very important to the New Dad Rock. And it was
why?
It was back in, I want to say 2013, could have been 2014, that Usher was putting on a show in Texas. It was part of some festival that I've forgotten the name of. I didn't know we were talking about this tonight, or I would have done my homework. But the whole point is, at this festival or at this show, Usher convinced an alternative band famous in the 90s to get back together and play the show, and that band was the Afghan Whigs. So the Afghan Whigs, who have since put out, 3 albums and have returned to the forefront of the New Dad Rock in the last half of the decade. But almost 10 years ago, it was Usher that actually compelled them to get back together.
Was he the curator of this festival?
I don't even remember. I know he performed, and the Afghan Whigs jammed with him for like 3 or 4 songs, and that was the extent of them getting together. And they're like, "Hey, this is fun. Let's get back together." And granted, the Afghan Whigs at this point is ostensibly Greg Dooley and John Curley, the bassist.
So it looks like it was uploaded to YouTube on 2013.
Okay, 2013, that makes sense. So 10 years ago.
Yeah, and according to Fader magazine from 2014, it was the weirdest collaboration in history. That's awesome. I'm totally going to listen to this later. This is awesome. Okay, we'll put these links down below in the description field. Wow, because we did an episode or 2 on Afghan Whigs, if I recall correctly.
The Afghan Whigs is our second most popular episode, FYI.
For new albums or new songs, well, I don't really have one, but I do have a concert. And what is new is old again. Wait, no, what is old is new again. Okay, that's what it is. I just saw Death Cab for Cutie and Postal Service on their peak millennial nostalgia tour.
Just say that again.
That's not even the name of the tour. But basically, they're touring 20 years later to support 2 albums that came out in the same year: Transatlantism,
right?
Transatlantis, and
so much closer. Yeah.
And the Postal Service album that has called "Give Up."
Yeah. So Ben Gibbard is in both of those bands. So what do? They're playing 2 albums, and that's the show. Because that's a lot,
totally,
for a man of Ben Gibbard's age, who I think is
he looked good.
He's roughly.
He looked good.
He's roughly our age, right? A little young.
Hey,
a little younger, maybe.
I'm just going to go through this pretty quick, and then we'll get on with the show. But my guess is they were doing a Postal Service tour, because I'm not sure they really played that much live ever. And then they're like, "Well, who should we get to open?" He's like, "Well, I can make twice as much money and at half the expense because he's reusing the gear across both. It's like using the same exact gear and crew.
Yeah.
So everyone's getting paid. So it was brilliant. They did have a Warpaint open, which we arrived with 3 or 4 songs left of Warpaint. So it was pretty fun.
I don't know what that is.
All right. Hey, is there a main plot to this episode?
Oh, well,
Maybe.
dozens of popular songs still litter the airways on every FM dial. Every satellite radio station. They're in Martin Scorsese picture soundtracks. But bubbling under these songs that have, really through all these sources just been reinforced over the last decades, there were still cool songs bubbling under. There were cool sounds of the alternative, the depths of which we at the New Dad Rock love to plumb.
All right. A quick jaunt through the 1974 Dad Rock calendar. January 3rd, Bob Dylan and the band begin their 40-date concert tour. It is Dylan's first tour since 1966.
That's crazy to think that he put out all those classic albums and didn't tour. Maybe that tells you that touring might not be helpful for the creative process.
Oh, true that. One of your favorite bands released their self-titled debut album on March 1st.
Rush.
Was Neil Peart not on the first album?
He was not. There was a drummer called John Rutsey who he just wasn't quite up to it, whether I think health-wise and mental-wise to do it. And Neil came in and kind of, made kind of Rush what they are. He in addition to his drums, he did the lyrics for 95% of their songs as well. So.
Oh, really? Yeah. Things I don't know. Today I learned TIL. All right. This brings us back to something we mentioned last episode, CBGBs. What happened on March 30th, Steve?
Who debuted there?
The Ramones.
The Ramones.
April 5th, who played their first show at Sunset Strip in Hollywood at Gazzari's?
I have no idea.
Van Halen.
Wow. Were they called Mammoth at the time?
I don't know. My research person didn't go that far back. Gazzari's. This is fun. We could turn this into a game show. I can ask you questions and see what you don't know. Oh, on my first birthday, the first Nebenworth concert was held. Headlined by someone we mentioned last episode. Who headlined the 1974 first Nebworth concert? I
have no idea, again, what you're talking about.
The Allman Brothers.
I've heard of them.
You talked about them last time.
Oh, I did.
All right, fine. So that's what's going on in 74.
I mean, that's what was going on on the main part of the 70s in the, the straight world, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
But bubbling underneath, and this had been a phenomenon for a number of years at this point, but it was mainly taking place in Germany, was Krautrock.
Krautrock.
So Krautrock, by 1974, had been around, again, since the late 60s. They were kind of, think about if the very psychedelic early Pink Floyd, the stuff with Syd Barrett was kind of the direction they took, and Adam Hart Mother and that trippier, careful with that X Eugene type song. This is where the band Can went, and there were other bands taking that psychedelic mantra and bringing it forward, and a lot of them they started adding in the 70s this machine-like beat. So Germany, a place known for its manufacturing, took to this almost automated sound, almost like a click track. Longer psychedelic songs, with hypnotic rhythms, some improvisation, but everything was the monotony and building and wearing you down. And, you see the bridge from the psychedelic 60s into the dance and the techno of the 80s and 90s.
It's very good. But I'm just so fascinated by Krautrock in general because so many people that I listen to loved Krautrock, but I don't really listen to it that much.
Right. So but, I would say, who would you think? The first one that jumps out at me is like Depeche Mode.
Oh, for sure. Especially Construction Time. Again, they went to Berlin and recorded found sounds to put into their music.
Yeah. Or at the Harder Edge Ministry or Nine Inch Nails, I think would be inspired by them as well.
Yeah, and John Dwyer from the OCs and Coach Whips, he put out a Ziegenbach Kopf, couple albums with them. I saw them live at Bottom of the Hill, but basically it was two guys dressed as Germans playing on the floor, not on the stage, without their shirts on, black leather, and just doing all these crazy songs. It was awesome. But so their influences forever. I mean, Pavement was into some krautrock bands, and we love them.
Yeah. By 1974, most of krautrock had been established, and I think there's four main players, kind of like the big four of thrash. They have the four main players.
Kraftwerk.
Yeah, Kraftwerk. And it's funny, each of these four, in the same way that Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax kind of represent a different stripe of thrash metal, I think these four bands influenced a different style coming out of it. So
I believe it.
So you mentioned Kraftwerk, and I think Kraftwerk, that brings you to the industrial style, to KMFDM, to Skinny Puppy, to early Ministry, that kind of stuff.
Totally.
And then, so your favorite band, Depeche Mode.
Is that more Can?
To me, that's more new, NEU, with an exclamation point. They're more synth-based. They're lighter. They're, very repetitive. Can, the next one that you mentioned, I think they're more experimental. They're more freeform. They're the more direct descendant of Syd Barrett, Pink Floyd. And then, their drummer just had this, metronomic beat. And they started with a singer, Damo Suzuki, or he wasn't even their original singer, but for their seminal albums, and, 1974's release was the first one without him. He was a Japanese-American singing in English with this German band, so it was completely chaotic. But in 74, he was gone, so it was like essentially down to a four-piece, and there's two big songs from this album, Dizzy Dizzy, which it sounds like a sock hop DJ'd by David Lynch, and it might even be the music. It might be the music they even use in Mulholland Drive. And then Splash is, it's kind of like a great pool party song. I'm pretty sure I put it on your playlist. If not, it was one of those mood songs that I might have gotten rid of because of time constraints.
Hey, is Gary Neuman krautrock?
Gary Neuman, I don't think it's krautrock, but he's definitely inspired. I would say he's new, and the last band that we didn't even mention is Faust, not the writer. This band is called Faust. I would consider them more like shoegaze, so like My Bloody Valentine, that sort of thing. But any of this was pushing the synth into the mainstream. So I think David Bowie's German period, the 3 albums he did in Berlin, which we'll get into in the next couple of years, those albums were directly inspired, but I think later any of like the new wave and any of that synth pop that came up in the early 80s, so Gary Neuman was definitely inspired, and Giorgio Moroder, he definitely was inspired to this day, Daft Punk or so many bands.
Oh, sure. The reason I brought up Gary Neuman was he's popped up on one of those auto-created playlists for me on Tidal. And, adjacent to him, they have New Order, they have Camouflage, Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark. So bands like that are bands that listen to these other bands and integrate it into their own music. All right, so I did a little research while you were telling us what really happened. But some common musical features exhibited by krautrock artists include a blend of elements from psychedelic rock with electronic music or avant-garde sources, so found sound sometimes, hypnotic or minimalistic rhythms, including the common 4/4 motoric beat pattern. Also, krautrock has an emphasis on long-form repetition, texture, and drone elements.
Yeah, a lot of these songs are like
structure.
7 or 8 minutes long.
It's not verse-chorus, right?
No, it's like... It's like the remix version of popular songs that you might have seen on a 12-inch record. That's what it seems like. It'd be
really cool if you just take that you did and just put it for like 30 minutes for the rest of this episode.
We're not going 30 more minutes, believe me.
No. I just want that sound. You can just sample it. Yeah, right? Use a synthesizer, dude.
Bow, chicka, wow, wow.
I see from the notes, musique concrète techniques. What is musique
I
concrète?
have no idea what that means.
No, I've seen it before, and I've looked it up like 10 times in my life, but it's one of those things that I just keep forgetting what it is.
It looks French.
I think it's like using old-timey like instruments that aren't real instruments.
I don't know. Maybe we'll edit this part out.
No, we're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
Concrete musique.
And then the last thing is, beyond having long songs, it's extended improvisation. So think about the Grateful Dead, think about Fish, and think about the Allman Brothers, those type of bands that would go on and they'll play songs that are 15, 20, 25, even 30 minutes long. King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard is doing that as well. So when their 3-hour show comes up, they're probably only going to play 15 songs in that 3 hours because they're drawn out, and it's the inspiration not only from jazz but from this krautrock. All right, have I given you enough time yet to look up musique concrète?
You have actually, and it's basically a genre of electroacoustic music that is made in part with an acoustic sound to begin with, but then it's manipulated using synthesizers or computer-based digital signal processing. It's a French word, and really it's just taking a found sound, a natural sound, whether it's musical or from the natural environment including like construction working, jackhammers, and all that stuff. But then distorted electronically.
So who's that electronic guy? Herbert? Am I saying his name right? He does that a lot on his albums. Like Bodily Functions is all like...
Bodily Functions, I imagine?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, I love the concept of all this stuff. I actually listened to... I have an album somewhere where it's 4 songs and it's all using a dot matrix printer. Like, so whatever they printed up, they made it into a sound. Remember dot matrix printers?
I do. So yeah, I would say that Krautrock by 1974, at least for the main progenitors, Can, Faust, New, Kraftwerk, they'd all peaked as creative forces by 74. Their enduring influences, I think, are going to be felt by David Bowie's Berlin period immediately following it. And then in some aspects of like prog and space rock, so Hawkwind, a band that we've spoken about, definitely had some of that motoric sound in them, and together both groups inspired King Gizzard, that's for sure. And the repetitive minimalist drones that surely influenced like new wave and synth pop and the techno that followed. And then even more recently, and in a much different realm, Oranssi Pazuzu. You can hear the echo of Krautrock in Oranssi Pazuzu, which is just amazing because it's Finnish black metal.
I gotta listen to Oranssi Pazuzu again. I love that when you first introduced me to it.
I think they're in the studio, so I think, in the next 6 months or so, we could be geared up for a new Oranssi album.
That'd be really cool.
With that note, thanks for tuning in. And remember to hit that like and subscribe button that may or may not exist. No matter what, go back, listen to the missing episodes that you haven't heard. We are brilliant every week, even when we're playing King Gizzard.
Until next time, keep the spirit of 74 alive and keep on rocking, because that's what we do here on
The New Dad
Rock. We should practice that.
Keep for tuning. Thanks for pull it.